And we're live. Oh, hit my backdrop. Hi, everybody. Hello, everyone. Just going to give it a few minutes, as I normally do, and then we'll start. I hope everyone's doing good today. First off, I want to say thank you. I've received quite a few of you wrote to me asking if I was okay and keeping safe. As you know, there's been a lot of activity in the world, to put it lightly. A lot of stuff happening in Brooklyn. A lot of stuff happening like literally on my block in Brooklyn. And I want everyone to know I've been keeping very careful, been very safe. But thank you very much for your concerns. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Geek Speaks Greek. I am your geek, George O'Connor, and I'm not speaking Greek, I'm speaking English, but what I am doing is I am talking about Greek gods, or goddesses, or monsters, or heroes. That's kind of what this show is about. Each day, well, not every day. I used to every day. It was too much work. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I get together and talk about one of these things. Today is a really big episode. Somehow, I feel like I've done like probably 40 of these or more ever since the quarantine began. We never really did Zeus. One of the first episodes, maybe even the first episode that is up on my YouTube, youtube.com/user, George Olympians. I kind of touch on Zeus a little bit because I was actually doing some stuff about his dad, Kronos the Titan. But we've never really done a Zeus heavy episode. So we're going to rectify that today. And let me be honest here also, we're not going to cover all of Zeus in one episode. That's impossible. So let's just consider this Zeus point 1. We're going to be doing other Zeus stuff later, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Before, Hawkeye shirt, I have the same one. All right, yes. A few Halloweens ago, I dressed up as Hawkeye. I did my hair blonde, had a bow and arrow. My girlfriend dressed up as Spider-Woman, the Jessica Drew version. They were together in the comics at the time. Sometimes if you notice my coffee mug I'm drinking from here, it's the two of us dressed up as that. It was one of my best ever Halloweens. I love Hawkeye, you know. All right. So before we get into stuff, I am going to share some of the artwork that you've all sent me. One of the best things about doing this show has been that you guys send me incredible artwork. I'm always getting this amazing stuff. I love to see it all. And so, wow, I have a lot to show again. This might be another one of those episodes where I don't get to show all the artwork I received over the weekend because there's just too much. Right off the bat, so last Friday, we did Iris, the Messenger of the Gods. And this inspired a lot of very colorful artwork from all of you. Up first, oops, I just closed it because I am bad at computers. This is from Elia. She did an amazing, this is beautiful. Look at the colors. I like that the rainbow is flowing from her head, which is kind of a design I wish I had used. That's a beautiful drawing. Thank you so much, Elia. Elia is one of those people who's just been sending stuff all the time, and her stuff is so nice. And she gets better and better. Now this one, this is really funny. This is from Addie. Now Addie has sent us stuff before, and before her stuff looked like it was colored with colored pencils. This time I feel like she's gone full on, like she's doing computer artwork. It's Who is the Fastest Messenger. Up at the top, we have Iris. At the bottom, and there's Hermes. And because it's backwards, I'm going to read it to you. And she's saying, Racia, and he's going, it is on. And what's really fun is if you look, I know it's hard to read because it's backwards, when she speaks, it's in a rainbow. It's another idea. I'm like, man, I wish I had thought of that. There's some of these things I like doing. I haven't done it very much in Olympians, but a few characters have specialized word balloons. I have to go back and check because I feel like Hestia, the one time she has spoken, which I've said before, I wish I had never made her speak because she speaks so much in Dionysus. It would have been kind of cool if this was the first time you ever really heard her speak. But her one line that she has in Hera, I think she actually looks like she's on fire, and I hope so because she's going to be talking that way from now on. Spoilers for what's coming down the road. Okay, so that's great. Thank you, Addie. Here's from Eleanor. Oh, man, what happened? Oh, there we go. Another super bright, colorful, beautiful picture. Eleanor, your stuff is so fun. I love this. This is great. And then let's go through a few more, huh? So this is from Moira. So Moira first, she drew... it came to me sideways. Let's see if I could kind of hold it. Maybe it makes sense as sideways. I'm going to hold it up sideways and we can all tilt it later because if I tilt it, it's going to spin. That's her version of Iris. It's beautiful. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet. Oh, you even did it though. You left out indigo. Indigo has no business being there. I mean, come on. It's just to make the rhyme work. Thank you. Then, if you remember, Moira's dad had hinted that she had drawn some reimaginings of the goddesses, and I was like, Moira, I want to see these. So we got some of them. Apparently this is not the complete entourage, but here are some of her reimaginings of the goddesses. So I'm not 100% sure who everybody is, but I'm going to make some guesses. I feel like this one up here is Hera, because I think that's like a peacock's thing behind her, which makes a lot of sense. Over here, pretty sure it's Aphrodite. She's got hearts flying around her. It's either Aphrodite or some weird goddess who eats hearts. The fire one could be Hestia. I'm pretty sure it is Hestia. Over here, we have a goddess. Now, this one, I think, is probably Selene, because she's on top of a steed, right? But it could also be like an Artemis, I suppose. But I'm pretty sure... Well, that's Athena. She's got her spear. This one is probably Demeter. Could also be Persephone. I think I got them all. Yeah, those are super cool. Thank you so much for letting us see those. I know it's sometimes hard to share those things. And then here we have yet another, and this one's super cool. Remember like years ago that guy got really excited about seeing the double rainbow? Can you imagine if he'd seen this? He's like, oh my gosh, all the rainbows in the world! Would have been really cool. Let's do a few more. Okay, so Yehi, as we all know, tremendous artist. Look at her iris. Look at the way the colors are leaping off. Well, it's not a page. Look at the cloud she's coming out of. Remember how I talked about her mom was Electra, whose name meant amber-tinged cloud? I think that's her mom. Like, this is so great. This is great. And, like, really bold color. Like, the way that you push the pinkness of her skin and, like, the way her robes are diaphanous. I love it. And then we had also had a discussion of whether or not she's a fan of Hera. And here, I think, he has taken a side. It looks like a pretty boisterous Iris standing up. She's at a table with Hebe and Heracles. I guess they're a married couple, so maybe she's feeling like a third wheel or something. And she goes, and to our queen, Hera! In the background, you could see Leto, Apollo, and Artemis kind of watching on because, they kind of kept to themselves. They're looking kind of annoyed, but... understandable. We talked about why they would be annoyed by the presence of Iris. And then this is super cool. Pandora's family. We haven't really discussed Pandora much on this podcast yet. Livecast yet. But I think we're going to have to. So Pandora, we learn her story in the book Hephaestus. And so she is married to Epimetheus. Here is their daughter Pyre. And there's the fire, which she's named after. And over here... with Epimetheus looking forlornly to the side, is his brother Prometheus. Prometheus, who, I guess this is maybe metaphorical, because Prometheus is chained to the Caucasus Mountains, where he's having his liver eaten up by a giant eagle every day. It's kind of a sad ending to the Hephaestus book, if you haven't read it yet. That's a little bit of spoilers, but I love it, and there's such sensitivity to that. It's great. I love it. You're amazing. Yeah, he also wrote me some questions. I haven't got a chance to get back to you yet because my weekend was cuckoo bananas, but I'll be writing to you later today. Now here's from Little Serial, another terrific artist. This is like Apollo and Artemis, full-grown adults, looking like they're kind of scared and just holding on to their mom Leto, just hugging her so tight. And I love it. This picture made me laugh. There's some really funny expressions there. And then this one's a little bit hard to see. But there's Hermes in the foreground, and there is Iris in the back. And Iris is zipping in there super quick. And this is the part, because it is a little bit hard to read, I actually can't read what he's saying. He's saying something. I interpret this as, because we had the discussion, who's faster, Iris or Hermes? And I feel like he doesn't realize that she just zipped in, that she's that fast. She's doing the thing I always talk about how Hermes does, where you're talking to him, but he's actually zipping a million places at once, so it looks like you're talking to him, but he's actually in a billion different places. If you could send me some clarification on that one, because it was a little picture, it just it got kind of blurry, I couldn't see. Let's do one or two more. Here's somebody I feel like we haven't heard from a little bit. This is from Joseph. And Joseph, we spoke last week about Orpheus. He drew Orpheus and Orpheus's moment of doubt as he's nearing the exit to the cave. We can see he's nearing the exit of the cave as he's leaving the underworld because we see the flowers before them. And he's in front and he's thinking, should I look back? Should I look back? And we see Eurydice behind him. And of course, we all know what happens. He looks back. And then here is Joseph's version of Iris. Again, we see that whole idea where her mom is the cloud, Electra, and her father is the ocean. And they're kind of like she's the joining thing between it. It's really nice. Oh, Little Serial has confirmed. He's saying, what took you so long? Oh, okay, so in the race between Hermes and Iris, I was talking about how Iris clearly moves at the speed of light, as she is light. But Hermes, I argued, moves quantumly faster. So I guess Hermes just beat her in a race. But, okay, well poor Iris. She gets, trouble. And now, this is from somebody who just joined us recently. Do you guys remember Jamie? She did a really great picture of Iris in anticipation of this. Look at this one. This is beautiful. Look at the way the light, like the sprinkling of the light, the way it's pouring off. Right? That's so cool. And but I should have said, by the way, this is Cellini. And it's a different take. Like, you could kind of see like the hint of the horns made up of like, I don't know if it's stars or is it like moon dust, right? Because like stars isn't really her bag, but I love the way it's like this shimmering field around her. And her dress really looks like it's made of moonlight. Like this entire thing, this is really great. So Jamie, thank you so much for this. Okay, that's a lot of stuff. I still have more artwork to show, so if I didn't get to you this week, watch for it Wednesday, because over the weekends you guys have been busy. That's great. I love to hear it. So, let me, if you decide you're going to send me something, please send it to my email, georgeoconnorbooks@gmail.com. I know some people have problems with that. You can also try georgeoconnorevents@gmail.com. You can try sending it to me other ways, but sometimes, honestly, I have a lot of stuff going on. I just don't always necessarily find it if you send it to me on my Instagram or Facebook, whatever, but I'll try. And if you want to catch an episode again that you've missed or watch one once more, you can go once again to my YouTube, youtube.com/user/GeorgeOlympians. All right. Let's get down to business. Today, finally, as we're so far into this, we're going to talk a little bit about Zeus, the king of the gods. I would say, and not even arguably, he's the most famous Greek god. Even the person in your life who knows nothing about Greek gods, knows nothing at all, say Hercules instead of Heracles all the time, all the embarrassing stuff, they know who Zeus is. And he's not just the king of the gods, although that's kind of the easy way to say it. He's also, most importantly, I would argue, he's the god of the sky. And a lot of people be like, but wait, isn't he like the god of thunderstorms? Oh yeah, absolutely, because that's something that happens in the sky. But it's more than just thunderstorms. He's also the god of the bright day sky. He's the god of all types of skies in between. When I'm getting ahead of myself, when they divided up the cosmos, he got the sky. That's his whole part. So thunder and lightning is probably some of the most impressive things that come out of the sky, at least as people perceive it. So that's definitely one of the things he's associated with. Of course, one of his symbols is throwing lightning bolts. That also helps. But yeah, he is the whole god of the sky. But that's not it. He was also, a lot of people don't realize this, he was an oracular god, just like his son Apollo, just like some of the other gods and goddesses. It wasn't maybe his main, definitely wasn't his main thing. It was at Dodona specifically was a place where he ran the oracle spoke through him. I mentioned this in a letter to somebody recently, so if you're watching, hi, I forget who it was, that the priests at Dodona would actually listen to the rattling of oak leaves, which was his sacred tree. And that's how he spoke to them. They would hear his voice whispering through the leaves, which I think is really cool and poetic. He was also the god of maintaining, it's a little bit of a loaded term right now especially, but he was the god of maintaining order. He wouldn't be, so I've often said this, I actually think, although I pick on Zeus a lot, and there's a lot of things about Zeus that are not great, right? He has 8 million kids with 8 million different people, stuff like that. But what I like about God, as opposed to other pantheons gods or other religions gods, he's kind of hands-off. He doesn't give you a lot of rules to follow that could be easily perverted into persecutions of different peoples. He's basically don't murder people. Maintain that order. He maintains order in that sense. If one of the things that Zeus does, we talked about it in a few episodes, there's all these creative punishments being meted out in Tartarus in the underworld for all these people who transgressed against the natural order. That's kind of a weird term, natural order, but like they committed horrible murders or things like that. And that was Zeus to punish. He's not going to punish you for believing in the wrong god. He's not going to punish you for eating the wrong food on the wrong day. He cares about the big stuff. And if you're going to murder somebody, or actually this is a big one too, if you're going to betray the the rules of hospitality, he's going to punish you. So I kind of like that. I like that he's got all the power in the world. Maybe it's just that he's not ambitious and he's just kind of like, well, I'm going to sit back on this cloud and look at pretty ladies all day. Maybe that's his bag. But I think more of his thing is you just like, it's the golden rule, like, don't hurt others. Do what others you would do to yourself. Although he's a terrible husband. Let's just say that again. Terrible husband, right? So I decided that this is really going to be part one of Zeus, right? Because the Zeus stories, there's so many to tell. Like, he ties into... In TV speak, he would be the spike around which everything else revolves. He is the orbit around these stories. Zeus is the central character of my series Olympians. He's not always the main character in many books. In some books, he barely appears. But in a sense, every single thing revolves around him. All you need to do is look at one of the family trees. And this is from the early books, so it's not so crazy yet. But you can always tell, without even looking, you could see where Zeus's name is. Just by I'm looking upside down. Let me get one that's actually later where you can really see how condensed it gets. Because it's funny. Like, you could just see all the lines that lead to Zeus. He's related to everybody. Most of the Olympians is either his brothers, sisters, or his children. And some of them are his girlfriends. So, let's talk about his family. Zeus is one of the OG Olympians, as I often call them here. One of the first generation of Olympians. He's the youngest of them. Their dad, of all six of them, is Kronos, the Titan, the leader of the Titans, the god of devouring time, and that everything crumbles before time and eventually is eaten away by it. That's what he embodies. Their mom is Rhea, the Titaness. She has a close relationship with the earth. In fact, in some sources, they're even kind of conflated. Like, it's kind of hard to tell the difference between Rhea and Gaia. Like, they're so, like, closely related. And that is who gives birth to Zeus, right? Now, before I get into here, I wanted to talk a little bit about Zeus's other recipes. Like, normally I list the family, list who their parents are, then I list their kids. And I'm like, I can't do that. I could literally... It would be exhaustive. I'd have to really research it. I couldn't do it off the top of my head. But I can guarantee you, I could just list children of Zeus for the rest of the 40 minutes of this live cast. And we wouldn't get to everyone. There are so many children associated to him. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rattle a few off the top of my head. I'm going to look at my trusty dusty Olympians poster off camera to help me do this. So, first off, his siblings. Hestia is the oldest. Then we have Hades, Demeter, Poseidon, Hera, then Zeus, number 6, right? Boom. That's the end of that chunk of people. With Hera, he has 3, perhaps 4 children, okay? There's Ares, Hephaestus, both of them proper Olympians themselves. There's also Hebe, the cupbearer of the gods. And then depending on whether or not you choose to personify her as an actual goddess or just an aspect of Hera herself, there's Eileithyia. I chose the personifier as part of Hera, because she doesn't really appear in myths. You just hear her mentioned. I have to look at the poster already. Okay, then with Metis, one of the Oceanides, he has Athena. With Leto, the daughter of a Titan, he has Apollo and Artemis. With Maya, one of the daughters of Atlas, the Titan, he has Hermes. This is really funny, me looking to the side over again. Aphrodite, not related to him. Unless you're looking at Homer. And I always say, like, I don't really go for Homer's versions. It's Hesiod above all for me. But Homer actually claims that she is the daughter of a goddess named Dione. Not Diana, Diona. And Diona is just kind of like a feminine version of Zeus's name, and like she doesn't exist aside from that. So I'm like, you know what? No, I don't like that idea. She marries into the family. Feel bad for Aphrodite. She has to deal with all this craziness. The Charites. We just did an episode on them within the last couple weeks sometime. The 3 of them, Aglaia, Euphrosyne, and Talia, are, Euphrosyne and Talia, they are the daughters of Zeus with the Titan, Eurynome. No, not the Titan. She's a Oceanide as well. Who else is up there? Pan is his grandson, so that's not direct. That's his, that's Hermes' son. Eris is actually not related to him, like surprisingly, except for distantly. She's the daughter of Nyx, as we talked about in a previous episode. Persephone! My gosh, Persephone herself is the daughter of Zeus and Demeter, one of his other sisters. So that's also, there's some tricky stuff going on there. Heracles, of course, is his son by the mortal princess Alcmene. Dionysus is his son by the mortal princess Semele. And I think that's pretty much it. Sometimes the Furies are considered, the Fates are considered as his daughters, but like, that doesn't work for me. So yeah, he's he's a seed spreader, says Anika. Yes, he is. He really gets around. So somebody says he has a Greek mythology fanatic. He has a few too many children. Yeah, honestly, that's the way he viewed it too. And if you read in the Iliad, part of the reason why he sets up the Trojan War, and make no mistake, that is some engineering on Zeus's part. It's to weed out his kids. He like just basically one day sat back and was like, it's getting so unearthed, there's more people I'm related to than I'm not. I think that's a little bit of a problem. I'm going to make a big war where they all fight against each other. And after that, there's a lot less Zeus kids. So yeah, then we're getting ahead of it. That's not the war we're going to talk about today. We're going to mainly talk about the Titanomachy, but even that's ahead of me. So Zeus, I mentioned, is the youngest of the original 6 OG Olympians, right? So Kronos, the Titan, when he assumed power, he wrested power from Uranos, his father, the sky, the embodied sky. We've talked about this in previous episodes. You go back and check it. And he didn't want to surrender his power or share his power, really. He shares it with his brothers amongst the Titans. But there were other brothers he had, too. The Cyclopes and the Hecatoncheires. Cyclopes, we all know what they are. Big one-eye guys. We did an episode on them. Hecatoncheires, I actually haven't done an episode on, though I did talk about them a bit. Hecatoncheires, they had 50 heads and 100 arms. And they're these huge, giant, immortal monsters. Equal in power, or maybe even surpassing in some ways. Maybe it's hard to tell. The Titans. They're hugely strong. And he's like, I don't need this extra. This is Kronos talking. I don't need this extra intrigue. I don't need these guys sniffing around my throne. So he keeps them imprisoned in Tartarus, which is the old saying from Hesiod is if you take an anvil and you drop it from the surface of the world, it drops for I think it's 9 days straight, like 9 nights and 9 days before it hits the bottom of the underworld. Then you drop it another 9 days and it hits Tartarus. So they're really under there deep, right? So that's where they're imprisoned. And Mother Earth, she's the mother of all of them. The Titans, the Cyclopes, the Hecatoncheires. And she's super sad. And she's like, well, I wish you'd free them. And Kronos is like, nah, we're not going to do that. So she puts a curse on Kronos and Rhea, his queen. And the curse is, your kid's going to overthrow you. This curse is going to sound very familiar. We've heard this curse before. It figures into the Olympians a lot, just not necessarily on him. So Kronos is like, well, I got you one beat. Every time Rhea had a kid, he picks the baby up. He's like, oh, what a cute little baby, what a cute little... And he eats it. Doesn't chew because he's not a chewer. He just swallows the baby whole. His children are the Olympians. They're immortal. Didn't matter if you chew them. They just get better. He swallows them whole, and they live inside of him. In my Olympian series, I've kind of shown it like it's a starry void inside of them. But you could also just picture like he's just a guy with a really big belly, and they're inside of him. In fact, who is it? It's, I think it's Goya has that really nightmarish painting. Like you've seen it of like Saturn, which is his Roman name, just like chewing on a kid, like eating. It's like, ugh, like that was some messed up stuff. No, he swallows them whole because they're fine. They're gods. They live inside of him. That's where they live. And Rhea's really sad. She's like, I never get to hold my babies. My husband just eats them. He's a jerk. I mean, I'm simplifying this clearly. And Mother Earth, Gaia, talks to her and is like, we have to work together. So the next time she gives birth, her 6th child, she, I had my thumb up too high, 6. She takes that baby and she wraps a cloth around it in its swaddling clothes. And she's like, look, here's our new baby. And Kronos, who, as we established, doesn't chew his kids because he would have noticed the kids were crunchy if he had, takes this baby, swallows it whole. There, he thinks he's taking care of it. But Zeus, for that's the baby Zeus, he's secreted away. And they take him to this cave, Mount Dika, in Crete. And there's these nymphs called the Kuretis. We talked to the Corybantes recently. I almost said the wrong name. Who also but the Kuretis were these nymphs, and they had shields and swords. They were banging on there all day because he's a baby. He's crying, especially because there's people banging shields all the time. But they don't want to have Kronos hear this, so he's just like, those are really loud nymphs over there. Let's go move away. But that lets them raise Zeus in secret, and he's kept in this cave. But being kept in a cave is way better than being kept in your dad's belly. At least I imagine so. My dad never ate me. I can't tell you. So he comes to age, and he is the only of the OG Olympians, think about this, who experiences the world outside. The rest of them are in their dad's belly, slumbering, having weird dreams about being eaten or whatever. We don't know. We do see a little bit in Poseidon in my book. We see that Poseidon, for instance, dreams of being a horse, but that's neither here nor there right now. And as he gets older, he meets some of his cousins, some of his relations. He meets Metis. We did an episode on Metis. You can see a lot of this up there. Metis is the oldest of the Oceanides. The Oceanides are the daughters of the ocean, Oceanus. He's one of the Titans. And she's really smart. Her name literally means wise counsel. Her name is good advice. So if you want to listen to good advice, you talk to Metis. And Zeus, he's got a lot of good got a lot of good traits. He's fearless. He's super charming. He's very powerful. He could change shape. He's ultimately strong. He doesn't have his full powers yet. We'll talk about that in a little bit. He tells her how basically he hears voices right from the earth herself. Mother Earth talks to him and is telling him about what he is and how important he is and how he's the son of Kronos and how he has brothers and sisters and he has to free them. And Zeus doesn't know how to do it. Metis is like, I got this, because she's smart. And depending on the version of the myth, sometimes it's this weird mixture of mustard and stuff, which is bleh. Sometimes it's wine, which doesn't really make sense because Dionysus hasn't invented wine yet. He's not born yet, so how's it wine? And in some versions, it's just a plant that Mother Earth grows herself. Makes the most sense to me. She's Mother Earth, right? They take this thing. It's a regurgitative. It's something that you ingest and it makes you throw up. And Zeus, on the advice of Metis, they have a whole plan where they confront his father, Kronos. And they trick Kronos into eating this plant or mustard concoction or wine or whatever. And he gets sick and he throws up. And this is I guess this is the biggest throw up of all time, because he doesn't just throw up. He throws up all his kids, right? Oh, I skipped something I wanted to talk about. Darn. Okay. Before all that, when he's being raised in the cave, there's this goat named Almatea. And Almatea is this, in D'Aulaire's Book of Greek Myth, this always stuck in my head as a little kid. They call her a fairy goat. I'm like, what does that mean? But she's a magic goat. She doesn't seem to have a magic lifespan, but she's there to raise Zeus through childhood. And she has these two horns, big long horns that come off her head. And have you ever seen a cornucopia, the horns of plenty, where it's this big brown horn and there's all fruits and vegetables pouring out of it? That's Almatea's horns. And one of the horns, well, depending on the version, actually. One of the horns gives nectar, one of the horns gives ambrosia, the food of the gods. But in some versions, it's one horn gives milk, one horn gives honey. In some versions, she's just a normal goat. She's here, I have, nipples. Here's my milk. But he's Zeus. He should get something special, right? So this is his companion. He's got these nymphs are always banging on shields, and then he's got a goat. The goat eventually dies. He takes her, he makes the cornucopia, the horn of plenties out of it. But he takes her skin, and he makes this kind of, sometimes it's called a shield, but if you read the old sources, it's pretty clear it's not a shield one that you would hold in your arm, with a big circle and it's metal. Sometimes it's called a breastplate too. But Zeus is always running around. If you look at the old statues and stuff, he's running around naked, right? Pretty much. He's also a god. He doesn't really need a breastplate as much. It's kind of almost like a cape. And you see this a lot. This is the Aegis, by the way. I'm just going to spoil it. More properly, maybe more famously associated with Athena. And in the older statues, you'll see she holds it as a cape. And there's great descriptions of how she shakes it before her and sends armies tumbling. Now, the Aegis is made from the skin of Almatea, right? And this is kind of cool. So the word Aegis, depending on, there's homophones, there are words that sound the same or are the same. I may be saying wrong, but they don't mean the same thing. The way witch can be a person with powers, or it could be a choice between two. Which witch is which, it's just two words that sound the same. So Aegis could either mean violent thunderstorms, right? Or it could mean either a goat skin or a young goat. So it kind of combines all these things. And it makes sense that Zeus was originally a thunder god, because we've talked about that. And he would wear this thunderbolt on his arm, like a shield on his arm of thunderclouds. But as time went on, it kind of also became this goat skin. And it's like the two, like you'll see once he gives it to Athena especially, there's descriptions of her shaking it in battle. And like this just makes this huge rattling noise. It's like this thunder, it's like maybe it's like a goat skin that has such crazy static electricity that you shake it, it's like, electricity shoots off. I don't know. So I want to just throw the Aegis in there because that's important. We're going to build up that later. Zeus, let's cut back to the action. Zeus has just made his dad vomit up his brothers and sisters. He meets them all for the first time. Hestia, Hades, Poseidon, Demeter, and Hera. And then they wage the Titanomachy. The clash of the Titans, the war against the Titans. This is this amazing battle. It lasts for 11 years that they fight against their parents and their uncles and aunts and uncles, the previous generation of gods. One of the things that's so interesting to me about Greek mythology is this idea of generations versus generations. First, there's Uranos and Gaia. Then Uranos is overthrown by the Titans. Then, spoilers, the Titans are overthrown by the Olympians. And then there's always this tension, who's going to overthrow the Olympians? And there's all these stories of like Gaia, how she turns on the Olympians because she's with them up until this point, right? She's helping them out. They are disadvantaged. There's only 6 of them. There's 12 Titans, although the female Titans maybe don't join in the fight. Neither does Oceanus, for that matter. But they've had some kids, too. And a lot of these kids are full-fledged Titans. We talked about this in the Prometheus episode, where Prometheus is a Titan, but he doesn't have the Titanly aspect, where he's not, like, taller than a mountain. He's big. He's, like, 10 foot tall, which is, like, impressive. But he's not, like, 1,000 feet tall. There's a big difference there. There's Atlas and Menoetius and Astreus and other ones. So there's a lot more Titans is what I'm getting at, right? And they're huge. And the Olympians, I talked about this before, they could get big if they wanted, but I chose not to draw that because it's not as visually interesting. I made them small, but they have their shape-shifting abilities. But they're still outnumbered. And there's nothing, it's 2 immortal forces clashing against each other. And ultimately, they can't kill each other. So this battle's kind of at a stalemate. And after years and years of this, Zeus, again, on advice from Gaia, his grandmother, he makes a trip to the underworld. The underworld. I'm talking Tartarus. 9 days, then another 9 days down to there. And that's where Kronos has imprisoned the Hecatoncheires and the Cyclopes. Now, the Cyclopes, their names are Argus, Brontus, and Steropus, which means like thunderbolt, or like flash of lightning. I talked about this in this episode. Like a flash of lightning, lightning goes like flash, like that. And then like the lightning bolt, where it's like jagged, and then thunder. They're storm gods, just like Zeus. And they're the ones who give him his electricity powers, his lightning powers. Depending on the version of the story, sometimes it's actually a physical thing. Like Rick Riordan very famously made it the Master Bolt. Like it's like Zeus's power is actually tied into this artifact. To me, this is just me personally, I don't like that idea. He's Zeus, he's king of the gods. This should be an intrinsic ability, not something you could take away from him by stealing it, right? It just seems to really denigrate the idea of the god himself. Like, if anybody can have the lightning bolt, or in some myths, the lightning bolt is even crafted for him by his son Hephaestus. Which is interesting, Hephaestus is a weapon forger, right? But then again, Zeus is dependent upon his son. Doesn't that make Hephaestus more the dominant god in that instance? I don't know, just throwing out ideas. But the Cyclopes also make weapons for the other gods. They give Poseidon his trident, which lets him shatter the earth in earthquakes. They give Hades his helmet of invisibility, which hides him. They give Demeter her sickle of gold, the Cryosaur, this golden blade that can slice through anything. And this battle suddenly gets a little bit more pitched. But then Zeus has recruited allies. It's not just the 6 of them alone against all these titans. Now they have the Cyclopes and the Hecatoncheires on their side. So they outnumber the Titans now. And man, I know I mention him all the time. Hesiod, you gotta read the Theogony. It's real cool. His description of this battle is really awesome. How the earth splits open and the Hecatoncheires come up and they have 100 arms. And they are just using these arms to be pelting. He describes it as missiles, but he doesn't mean like, missiles. He means like rocks. Pelting the Titans with these things and pulling them down. And they defeat the Titans. And then Zeus, and I mean, this is kind of my whole book, the first book. Zeus and his brothers. Hades uses his helmet of invisibility to sneak into the Titans' camp and steal their weapons. I didn't do the part in my book because I thought Titans without weapons, they didn't need them. They're so big, it looked cool. But he goes in there, he frees Metis in my book. And then with Poseidon and Zeus, they fight against Kronos and they defeat him. And all the Titans are cast into the underworld and sealed up. The same place where the Cyclopes and Hecatoncres had been. In fact, the Hecatoncres are like, you know what? We like it under there. We're going to stay underground and we're going to be their jailers, make sure they can't get out. And they make these like giant bars of like adamantine and a bronze door and stuff, all these things, and then keep them locked in. The Titans are stuck. And Mother Earth, Grandmother Earth, who's like, wait, the whole point, Zeus, that I got you to overthrow the Titans was so all my children would be freed. And I'm super appreciative that you freed the Cyclopes and the Hecatoncres. But now you locked up the Titans. And he's like, yeah, man, they're trouble. They ate my brothers and sisters. They locked everyone else up. I'm keeping them locked up. And this creates a rift. Creates a rift between Zeus and Mother Earth. And from that point on, Grandmother Earth for him. From that point on in these stories, you see there's a lot of stories where Mother Earth is working to unseat the King of the Gods. The King of the Gods she helped put there. There wouldn't be a Zeus if it weren't for her, right? And she sends the Gigantes after him. And there's so many things she does. And I'll talk about that in like Zeus Part 2 whenever I do that. I don't think I'm going to do it Wednesday. I want to do Zeus Part 2 maybe a little bit. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing yet Wednesday. Maybe we'll do it then. There's just so much stuff to talk about Zeus. Like I said, he ties into everything. It's him that all these stories orbit around. He is the fulcrum. He is the key to all these stories. I wanted to talk though because I knew this would take a long time. We're up to 336. I haven't even drawn yet. So I'm going to talk a little bit. I'm going to draw some pictures of Zeus, specifically my version of Zeus and how I arrived at Zeus. And then I want to take some questions because I've already talked for so long. We can all see this, right? Oop, almost dropped it. So when I designed Zeus, I know some people really like me. Should I draw him as a baby first? No, I'm not going to draw him as a baby. I know some of you guys really like to see babies. But, so, my Zeus... When I was working on this series, Olympians is, of course, a 12-book series. There's going to be. Working the 12th one right now. Zeus isn't always the most likable character. Today, we're doing Zeus Part 1. You're kind of on his side. But there's a lot of stuff. We already talked about the fact he has too many kids. He's cheated on his wife a billion times. He's done some stuff that's not great. I knew I had to make Zeus super likable at first. And then I thought more about the idea of Zeus. I'm like, what? Like, so I was realizing he's a pretty chill god. As long as you're not killing people or something, he's okay. He lets you do stuff, right? I'm like, okay, I like that. And so I just felt like... there's this writer, Grant Morrison, who did a really great comic book series called All-Star Superman. I'm not normally the biggest fan of Superman. I like him as an icon, but I think sometimes his stories can be really dull because people don't understand him. Grant Morrison really gets him, and Grant Morrison writes him as a super chill guy. Because for the most part, you can't hurt Superman. If you have kryptonite or magic, you could do it. But for the most part, he doesn't have to worry. He can go into any situation knowing he has unbelievable powers. He can't be hurt. He could deal with anything, right? And that's kind of my take on Zeus. Zeus is like, I'm the king of the gods. And so I drew him. I used to have a thing when I do my live presentations, I talk about this. I basically designed my Zeus to be like, he's like a young surfer guy. So I gave him like his curly hair. He had to be like very good looking and charming. Because most of the myths about Zeus are him being good looking and charming. He's got a zillion lovers. My Zeus is actually not super buff. For a guy who could literally pick up mountains, you know, he doesn't look like the Incredible Hulk or anything. He's kind of he's got a good body. Believe me, I wish I had Zeus's body. But he's kind of, because we're drawing early Zeus, I'm going to give him his Aegis. He's got a relatively slender frame. And that was also on purpose. He's so powerful, how would he ever exert himself? He doesn't need to be muscular. He's got the body of an athlete, but like a very well-proportioned athlete. Here's his hands on his hips. He wears like a little mini skirt. It's not really called a mini skirt, that's just my little joke. Let's make him having his hand up here. Maybe he's like just snapped his fingers and there's like a lightning bolt. Now I remember when I did a little bit of Zeus before, I talked a little bit about some of his design choices, and I wanted to go into that a little bit more today. I actually have colored pencils, markers from when I did Iris the other day. My Zeus has eyes the color of the sky, because as I said, he is the god of the sky. So if you look in one of my books, like it's the exact same color blue as the blue sky whenever I do this. Now I had an idea early on that I kind of wish I had kept. And I remember some of you drew art. I think, this might have been one of the first things you ever sent me, actually. I had drawn the idea. So Zeus has this white hair. And I'll just explain this again for people who missed this one. I'll keep it short if you've seen it already. As the god of the sky, I wanted his hair to look like a cloud, like a white cloud. And the idea was going to be that when he was in his normal default stage, after getting his lightning powers, he was just going to have white hair. And when he used his abilities, like if he was really angry, because you actually do see some references in Greek mythology, they refer to him as having a dark beard. His hair was going to turn black like a storm cloud. And I played around with these designs and it never quite worked. It looked more like I was making coloring mistakes or something. I never pulled it off. Nowadays, I'm pretty sure I could have known how to do it. I'm kind of sad. But I established already, I'm 11 books in the series. It'd be pretty weird if in the last book all of a sudden his hair turns black. But that was kind of the idea behind that. His hair was going to turn black as he got mad. Maybe one day when I do remastered version, I'll be like George Lucas is like an old, hopefully I'll be that rich, but I'll be like this old crazy guy being like, I'm going to go back and change all my books and then like do different coloring. I don't know. Another little detail, you can't really see it here because it's kind of small. My Zeus, he has like a little lightning bolt mustache because, he's the god of lightning. Something else I wanted to talk about was Zeus's worship in the ancient world. A lot of times I'll mention in these episodes places where the god had a specific, or goddess had a specific seat of worship, where things were particularly, like the way, like, for instance, like Delphi was super important to Apollo, or the way, like, Arcadia was super important to, like, Hermes. With Zeus, his worship is all over the ancient Greek world, obviously. It makes a lot of sense, because he was, the king of the gods. He's born, as we know, on Crete, but he has kind of centers all over the place. I also mentioned Dudan already, but what I wanted to talk about really quickly was the ancient wonders of the world. There were 7 of them. The only one that exists to this day is the pyramids of Giza. But in Olympia, there was a statue of Zeus. This thing was giant. It's one of the biggest statues that ever existed. And it was made of ivory, like elephant tusks, which is like, oh, sad, and gold and precious jewels. And it lasted for, I think it was built in like the 5th century BCE and lasted until about the 5th century CE. It lasted about 1,000 years. No one's really sure what happened to it. There's a lot of different theories. But it no longer exists. It may have been destroyed in a fire. It may have been looted. It was covered in jewels. It was made of valuable stuff. There's a lot of incentive to take it. We're not even 100% sure what it looks like. There's some ancient coins that have pictures of it on there, but like they're not like photograph pictures. They're just kind of, we knew he was seated. We knew he was holding a statue of Nike in one hand. He was holding like a staff with an eagle atop it in the other. He was seated. He had a robe. Oh, this is cool. They recently found, so this was sculpted by the sculptor Phidias, and they found Phidias's workshop, and they have found molds of parts of the robe. Because the robe, they think parts of it were made of glass to give it like, maybe like laid over to give it an iridescent shine. This statue sounds amazing, right? And they found the molds they used for that. So that's all we have. That's all we have is the thing, like little parts of his robe, the molds of it. So he was sitting there. He was actually wearing pants, which we can all be happy for. Well, not pants, a robe on his feet. He was wearing, people have known my take on this. I didn't draw my Zeus never wears sandals because he's before sandals. But this Zeus was wearing golden sandals. And when I say gold, they're made of gold. And he was standing, he was resting on top of a box. On this box on the side was an entire scene of the Amazonomachy, like Greek soldiers fighting as the Amazons. There was stuff hidden all over the statue. There was a million little statues on this statue. And then he was described as having a big beard. He had laurel wreath in his hair, made of gold, so it wasn't really laurel, you know what I'm saying. His eyes were set with jewels. I think his teeth were set with jewels. He was on a giant throne. I think I've heard that the Lincoln Monument is actually in a pose that's supposed to be somewhat reminiscent of a description of this. I don't know if that's true. And it was this amazing work of art. They had to keep it oiled all the time because apparently ivory, as it gets older, cracks, so it was always glistening. It just sounds really cool. And that was in Olympia. Zeus was the source of the Olympic Games. You know, we still have those to this day. Every 4 years in ancient Greece, there were games held all across the Greek-speaking world to honor this god, the king of the gods, the most, in a sense, the most important god. Even though he was one of those gods that maybe you didn't have a lot of interaction with on a normal every day-to-day basis. Someone said, glass robe, ooh, would have been amazing to see. Mr. Wizard, I agree. It's something, it's just such a shame. You know, like you read about all the stuff that's been lost in history, all the writings, all the artwork. Like, that's definitely one of my wishes. If I could go back to ancient Greece, I'd have to be invisible because, you know, they would immediately be like, who's this guy and why is he so weird and why is he not speaking? But just sneak around and just be able to see all this stuff. In fact, if you guys want to have a fun game that you could play around, I'm going to recommend Assassin's Creed Odyssey. They did a really great job of reconstructing ancient Greece. It's way, way, way smaller, but you can kind of walk around. You can see stuff. You could see their recreation of the statue of Zeus at Olympia. You can see all this stuff. It's merely amazing. I'm also going to make a book recommendation. This is a book written by a guy named Tom Stone. It's backwards right now. It's called Zeus. And it's great. It's the subtitle's A Journey Through Greece in the Footsteps of a God. And what it is it's like a travel book. The author travels around Greece and goes to different places where Zeus was worshipped and stuff. But also, he goes to where Zeus's worship originates from. Remember I mentioned up front with Prometheus chained to the Caucasus Mountains? They're in Russia. The earliest accounts we have of Zeus, this god, comes from that area. He's from the Caucasus Mountains, which is why, actually, Caucasus Mountains is where we get the term Caucasian. That's why my Zeus has that skin color. Because I'm like, all right, he was from the Caucasus Mountains. Let's give him that color. So, I talked a lot, and we barely scratched the surface. And we don't have that much time for questions, so now, let's do some Q&A. How's this sound, guys? I'm going to grab some water because I'm dying. Let's see if I've missed any. Maybe we could have had electricity from home. Maybe we could have had electricity at home from ancient times if Zeus is the god of the hearth. It looks like people were discussing switching around different gods and stuff. If you have a question, actually, because it looks like to go back for it, please ask it again. I'm sorry, just cut and paste if you could. So if Zeus would ever say, I'm retiring, who is he handing the baton down to? Who would Zeus choose to take over? Man, that's a cool question. Because, like, would Zeus ever retire? He seems to really like being in charge. And I don't know if that's... I feel like that's... Like I established, he doesn't really do much with it. He's not like a despot. He doesn't really care. He's pretty chill, but I think he likes so much not having anyone above him. I think a lot of that's a persecution complex from the way he grew up. All these gods are informed this way. There is a certain line of thought. The Orphics believe this, and we know who they are. We talked about Orpheus. It was a branch of Greek religion where they actually received prophecy from Orpheus himself, and they had a very different take on it. According to the Orphics, it was Dionysus, which is like, wow, interesting choice. But it makes a lot of sense when you take a look at some of the way the world happened. I often mention Dionysus is a different type of god. He's different than the other Olympians. He's born of a mortal woman. He has a whole earthly existence. He could actually die for a while until he ascends, right? The God, son of God, born of the immortal God of mortal woman, that's a pretty famous thing in the world now. That's Christianity. So maybe in a sense, the idea that Dionysus would take over was like, it was a presage of that. It was the idea like, oh, that's it. That's where we're moving. The general people want to believe more in this sort of being now. I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas. We've talked about in other episodes, it would make the most sense, I think, for Athena to take over. Actually, I think Megan, who, I don't know if you're watching, hi Megan, Megan, the way that she kind of ships Hermes and Athena together, that would be pretty good, because Athena's got like the brains and she's very officious, but she's a little bit of a cold fish. So if she has Hermes there, who's the other god equal to her in intelligence, he's a little bit too much of a goof. But the two of them together as like a husband-wife team or king-queen team or just brother-sister team, tag teaming these things, they might actually do a pretty good job. I don't know. Mr. Wizard Wannabe, I had asked, if Zeus hadn't been destined to get the lot of the sky, imagine he and his brothers had picked different lots. Oh, that's cool. And I didn't even get to that one. I should have talked about that. So really quickly, after the Titans were overthrown, after Zeus and Hades and Poseidon defeated Kronos, they divided the cosmos. And I meant to get back to this, so thank you. And Zeus got the sky, and Poseidon had gotten the ocean, and Hades got the under the ground. They all shared the surface of the ground together. Now, just imagine if that had switched. There's a lot of different permutations there. Zeus as king of the sea, I don't think there would be much of a difference. Maybe the sea would be a little bit less angry, but I think Zeus would just kind of maybe the sea would be more placid all the time. It'd be like the Pacific Ocean's everywhere. Everyone would just be kind of chilled. I think he'd spend all of his time chasing after Oceanides and sea nymphs, kind of like he does already. If he had been the god on the underworld, Zeus is ambitious. Hades is patient. So Hades, I've said this before, Hades wins in the long run. You know, we're all mortals. We're all going to be his guests eventually. That's why it drives me nuts where there's movies or TV shows or comics where Hades is trying to overthrow Zeus. Like, no, Zeus, you guys are immortal. For him, it's just sitting back, putting his feet up, and eventually he's in charge of everything. But Zeus, if he was the god of the underworld, he might not. There might actually be some sort of... He already led one insurrection against his dad. Maybe he would fight against which other brothers were on top. Now, Poseidon as the top god, he seems to be more easily offended. I'm top god, the sky god, than Zeus. So I think there'd be a lot more people getting hit by lightning. Poseidon as the underworld, I think he already bears a lot of resentment as god of the sea. I think that resentment would just increase if he was the god of the underworld. I don't know he'd necessarily do anything with it. It's an interesting thought, though. Hades as god of the above world, I think he'd be pretty good. I think he'd actually be, because I think he's more even-tempered. He's definitely more even-tempered than either the other two brothers. And as god of the sea, I guess the same. I don't know. That's a real stumper. That's a question we could do like a whole episode talking about. Yeah, I also dislike when they make Hades the bad guy. Me too. It drives me nuts. Zeus is the most scared of Aphrodite. Indeed, because Aphrodite is, she's got some real power over him. He's got a real weakness for love, and she could make him fall in love with anything. Oh, good question. He asks, were there ever any female satyrs? So, in vase painting and in myth, there does not seem to be. The satyrs seem to be like a wholly male group of people. We often see them chase around after nymphs who are a wholly female group of people. Maybe they're the same race and they just have there's huge sexual dimorphism there. Where one side looks like a goat, the other side looks like a beautiful woman covered with leaves. Who knows? That being said, I seem to recall seeing in some museums in Rome there being a couple of statues of young... maybe a teenage girl satyr. I might be making this up, but I think it's real late period, Roman period, and it's almost surely decorative. I think somebody just is some rich, patrician was put one boy in there, one girl in there, and the sculptor's there were no girls. Shut up, and that was the end of it. My throat's going out of me. Hades is nice, but he's stuck in the underworld. You gotta feel bad for him. Yeah, he does. Let's see, who else we have? Why did Zeus choose the punishments for the people in Tartarus and not Hades? Do you guys hear that? It was really loud. Hades pretty much keeps to himself underground there, right? He's got his hands full, or not, just watching over the shades of the dead already. Zeus, the reason he chooses it is that's one of his jobs. One of his main jobs, really. The sky and stuff is something that you see in, that's a part of the natural world he has control over. But as far as Greek society, as far as humans get along with humans, that was maybe arguably Zeus's main role. This idea that there was some level, it's we talked about Nemesis, how you would want to do things good so that you don't have Nemesis off to you. Zeus would he was the incentive. Like Christians believe if you murder someone, you go to hell. They don't have quite the hell concept in Greece. They have instead, if you murder someone, Zeus is going to punish you in Tartarus. So Zeus kind of, as we know, Zeus and Hades actually get along. They're pretty tight. So where's a more bleak place on a mother's earth than Tartarus? There is none. So he's kind of worked out a deal with his brother. He's like, yeah, so like, just so you know, this guy, he did a lot of stuff. He literally caged death and locked him up, and nobody could die. And like this one person, like a tree fell and they were in a lot of pain. They wanted to die and they couldn't, all because he didn't want to die. And then like I'm telling the story of Tantalus. And then can you do something to him? Make him have to push a rock up a hill forever. And wait, that's not Tantalus. That's Sisyphus. I mixed it up. I always do that. But like, so he would basically like Hades is doing his brothers a favor, being the jailer sort of for these guys. How come Hera and Hestia weren't given weapons by the Cyclopes? You know, that's a great question, because I've actually done some research on this. Because Hesiod, you know, he above all, who I always mention all the time, he specifically mentions, too, that the gods and goddesses fought. That it wasn't just the three sons. Like in the final battle, you don't hear what the goddesses are doing, but it's not like he wasn't being sexist where it's like, you know, and the goddesses stayed at home and made food. No, they're out there fighting, too. And we know Chrysaor, the golden blade, right? But we don't really know what Hera and Hestia have. Now, Hestia, it's reasonable to assume she was probably wielding fire in some way, right? Hera, I don't know. It's an interesting thought. Maybe someone out there who's done some research independently of this. It's been a while since I've read the theogony, and I don't think it's in there. But it could be in some other sources. Maybe I should actually just do a Google search. Like, was Hera gifted anything by the Cyclopes? Like, I mentioned this in the Hera episode. Hera, not just the goddess of marriage, she's also the goddess of air. So maybe the way she fought was she just like, hey, you can't breathe now, suckers. I don't know. Maybe they didn't need weapons. You know, I kind of show it in the little snippet I show of the Gigantomachy in the book Hera, where she's fighting, but she seems put out by it. And the thing about Hera is she's immensely powerful. Many ancient sources describe her as equal in power to her husband, Zeus. So there's this bit where, like, the first panel you see is Zeus with this lightning bolt above his head, and his eyes are glowing, and, like, there's electricity shooting up, and he's blowing up Cyclopes, and she's like, not Cyclopes, that would be awful, Gigantes, and she's like, Zeus, and you see this giant Gigante with a club, and Hera's just kind of holding the club in place, like, and he's, whoops, sorry, and he blows the Gigante up. And I feel like maybe that's the way she fought. She just kind of was like wading through them, just like smashing them, but like not really getting like, you know, down and dirty because she's Hera. That's just not her style. I don't know. Could we have a Wednesday, an alternate myth day with like what if Rhea and Kronos had 12 children, or if Hestia was saved and freed her brothers and sisters? That would be an interesting idea. Maybe I will do it one day where that's going to be purely hypothetical. That's not myths. That's just George making up stories off the top of his head. But like almost like, you know, there's that Marvel series, What If, that's coming out. It was a comic book for years. Like, what if this happened? Like what if? That would be pretty cool. Is Zeus smarter than he acts? He sort of acts like he doesn't know what he's doing. Zeus is definitely smarter than he acts. So the thing about Zeus, I think it helps him to act like a dumb guy. And sometimes he's definitely not thinking. Again, that goes back to the idea he's all powerful. He can do whatever he wants. So he just kind of lets stuff happen around him because like the stakes are really low for him. The chances of something really ever happening to Zeus are very, very slim. But Zeus is super crafty. Zeus has he's bent the fates. We know maybe he didn't do that on purpose. Zeus engineers the Trojan War, and nobody, not even Hermes, really realizes it. He's actually incredibly crafty. And part of it is exactly a dumb guy act. Because if you want people to not know how smart you are, act dumber than you are. And then they all assume you're like that. And Zeus is like, I often say, smartest two are Athena and Hermes, and probably Hera's number like 2. Zeus might be up there. Because he is super crafty. He also maybe sets up the whole thing with the dry vining the lots. He kind of plays everyone, and it's hard to tell what he's up to. It's kind of cool. Okay, unfortunately, I went super long here, and we're down to 59 seconds, so I have to like kind of wrap this up. Let me put my drink down. Good episode, everybody. Really great questions. This was really fun. If you have any questions that you really want to know before next week and you want me to answer them, please write to me at my email at georgeoconnorbooks@gmail.com. Please send me artwork too. I don't know what I'm doing Wednesday. We might do Zeus Part 2. I don't know. We might do something else. Maybe we'll do Dionysus. Maybe we'll do alternate myths. Maybe I'll stare in stony silence at the camera for an hour and you guys be like, this is really weird. George is flipped out. And whatever it is, you can actually catch that episode and other ones in the future as they're archived on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/user/George Olympians. And everybody, thank you so much. This was really fun. I'll see you on Wednesday. Just keep an eye on my Instagram to see what the episode will be about. If you have any suggestions, like I said, write them. And I'll see you all then. All right, bye-bye.